All right, we are recording. Good evening once again. My name is Brian Schaffer. I'm the principal of Lamoille Union High School. I'm joined by Denise Maurice, the Lamoille Union Middle School principal, as well as a range of personnel. Hopefully not to exclude everybody, but we've got Superintendent Gallagher. We've got Wendy, Savery, curriculum director. I don't know if Brian Pena is on the line. I know that Flo Kelly is on the line. Tim Messier, our athletic director, and Stacy Stokes, our middle school athletic director, will be joining. Jan Hall-Stevens, etc. We've got a whole lot of things going on right now, and a whole lot of people. So thank you so much. The information I'm about to share was distributed to families last week. I would first draw your attention to the chat box, and in that, come on. Tough to do three things at once. In that chat box, you will see a link. For those that are on the phone call, this is a link that was distributed. This is our district's hybrid remote learning application. This is due by midnight tonight. We've received many responses, and why we put this out there is that we want to make sure that parents have the opportunity to give their thinking as far as what they're looking for out of a program for their children coming in. I know at Lamoille Union, we are attempting to, and if anybody's trying to text me, I can't do three things at once, so please cut it out. Anywho, so that application is out there. It's due by midnight. That information is going to help the school and the school system create a program for students across the district. We have many families that have students in elementary, middle, and high school, and we want to make sure that our response is coordinated. So that link is available to you via email and also through this chat. I'm going to briefly take you through a presentation we've assembled, and then certainly we'll try and answer any questions. Please understand, once again, it is often difficult to facilitate, run a presentation, and answer questions at the same time. I would let you know that we do weekly community check-ins, which are a smaller group focused on the high school, but gives us more time for question and answer, but there'll be an opportunity at the end of each presentation to do so. So somebody could just quickly unmute their mic and tell me that you're seeing a PowerPoint that I put up.
Yes.
Yes.
Cool. All right. Thank you very much. So there are several learning options. Quickly, we received Vermont Agency of Education guidance over the course of time, most recently August 11th, and I didn't even get to update the slide presentation today. Again, parents can have access to this. I'll make sure I drop it in the chat box, but the bottom line is that we're gaining new information and being flexible on the fly. I want to just 1 second, let these other people in, and then I will continue with my presentation. I want to highlight for just a second, remote learning was a concept that came really up into fruition during the fourth quarter of last year when the executive order was placed out to close down schools. But I want to highlight a couple things about Lamoille Union High School. And that is that we've had remote learning options at our school for some time. The top two that you see here, the Octave model and the VTVLC to go models, are going to be new. And the Octave model is specific to what will be happening at the high school as far as hybrid, in-person, and also it transitions smoothly to remote learning. The to-go model, Wendy, Savery, I'm sure will speak about that briefly, but I need to let folks know we have had online courses that we've linked through a coordinator, guy's name is Chris Lusaskis, as well as content area individuals, as far as options for students that have existed in the past. So we're quite familiar and comfortable with online learning. In addition, there have been opportunities for independent study, whereas a student would pursue their own learning, would gain proficiencies along the way, and would come out with a demonstrable product. We've had extended learning opportunities, which is if you've been engaged in, I don't know, the Governor's Institute or a Leadership Institute, how does that show your learning over time? We've had that. And of course, dual enrollment and early college have been available and continue to be available to students. In the hybrid model, these all, let me just make sure I can let people in. And people keep coming in. This is awesome. Let me go back to my slideshow. Is to say that during the hybrid model, many of these would be available. So what we are putting together, and a communication should be available to families towards the end of next week, is that in essence, in the hybrid model, all these options are available. We're going to focus on the Octave, but we're going to split the school into 2 groups to reduce the risk of transmission. There'll be a blue group that attends Monday and Tuesday at the school and is remote Wednesday through Friday. There's a gold group that would attend Thursday and Friday and would be remote Monday through Wednesday. This focuses on 5 days a week of instruction, and we've had a limited option for students to attend 4 days for those who feel that they need it. Let me dip into the meat of the matter, and that would be our Octave model. We spent a lot of time reviewing surveys and going over feedback we got from parents, teachers, and staff. The big takeaways were that there was a lot of information and a lot of expectations. There was either a lot of communication or a little communication, and that what people were looking for was greater connectivity, focused on smaller groups. As you can see, the pod structure is alive and well at Lamoille Union High School. And based on the feedback that we got, we took the concept of octaves, and that would be that staff and student schedules would be broken up into 8 octaves. There would be a quarter 1, 2, 3, and 4 morning and afternoon schedule. That students would arrive to school, and we're still working through the logistics of busing and how we will make sure that there are health screenings for everyone coming in. They would spend their morning session with an instructor, followed by a lunch and an afternoon session. That we would change pods each quarter. That we are building in workshops. This past year, we launched a very successful program called EPIC, the Educational Path I Choose, which goes back more to the independent study and/or extended learning opportunities, where it was more of a flexible setting to begin with. We have time built into our schedule, whereas these times for interventions for students that are on any level of plan, students who need additional assistance, would be able to get that. Right now, we're working through the numbers, and it looks very promising that the octaves would be held in a very small amount of numbers. We're focusing again on the pod concept, where we try and keep students in less contact throughout the school day with other students. But here you can see a very brief snapshot of a schedule, and this is a very rough outline. I would also pull down, here's something that's really exciting to many of the teachers here, and that is that we're going to be pairing teachers into pods, and so there'll be some natural humanities pods that come out of it. We're very excited about the performing arts, but we trust our teachers to work with one another to create a schedule within the time that they have, to make sure that there's an opportunity for direct instruction, an opportunity for independent work time, some staggered breaks, a staggered lunch throughout the day, and obviously the interventions that we know students may need from a fourth quarter. And so let me just dip back out. I'm going to stop sharing for a second. Still have people coming on in. And so all these materials are available. I'm going to drop the actual link to the presentation in the chat box so that you can review it at your own leisure. I see a note. I think we're testing the capacity of Google Hangouts, and so I apologize to those that are getting kicked out. I cannot hear you. Can we please get this email to us? So yes, of course. So I will, the presentation itself and all the information has been emailed to parents. I'm sorry that Google Hangouts isn't working so well, but we do have a lot of people on the call. Let me just check the chat box. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and pause, and I would turn it over to Denise Maurice to take over the presentation. I'm just going to take a step back here to see what communications have come in, as this is posing some technical challenge. So Denise, you want to pop on in?
Yes, Brian, I am here. Hi, everybody. For those of you who I haven't met yet, I'm Denise Maurice. I'm the new principal of the middle school. I've been there 4 years as the assistant principal, so I'm just changing offices. But this year's a little bit unusual, as we've talked about. Our schedule at the middle level is a little bit different than at the high school, though we will still be able to coordinate with our shared staff and hopefully come up with a system that will work for our 8th graders who normally take courses there. We've got some things in the works for that. There's been a lot of questions there, so I think I'm going to address that first because I know there's been a lot of questions there. We have a couple of options for our 8th graders who take classes at the high school. One option are the Admentum courses that Brian mentioned earlier, because they do have a lot of experience guiding students through those, and those could be either guided by our middle school teachers or by Chris Lasauskis from the high school, or in combination. We also have plans that students can use Google Meet and join the high school classes in progress. So rather than crossing over and breaking up the pods, they would just do it from the middle school side, supported by middle school teachers. So those are our two main options for how 8th graders can join the high school classes. Our schedule at the middle level will be an abbreviated version of our normal day, where we have smaller pods that will rotate through their core classes and one applied. And the way we're making this work is it's almost going to be a waterfall changing classes, where one class, we're thinking it will probably be science, will go out onto the mezzanine area, and then classes will switch one at a time so that we only have that small pod in the hallway at one pod in the hallway at any one time. So I will bring up our schedule and just walk you through that quickly. And one quick second. Okay, hopefully you can see this. All right. A typical day or typical week, you can see on Monday and Tuesday, we'll have Group A in, which will be primarily 7th grade, and that will help us break our school in half. So we'll have primarily 7th and 8th grade on Monday, Tuesday, primarily 8th grade on Thursday, Friday. We know that there is some need to have a different grade on a different day, and we're going to work with that and have a smaller pod in the building on that day. We'll have homeroom, which will be the initial cohort group that will travel together throughout the whole day. Block 1 might be ELA, and each block will be 90 minutes long. You'll notice also that homeroom and the time where buses are arriving is a little longer than it is traditionally, so that we have plenty of time with any health checks as people come into the building, and as buses may take longer to get to the middle high school. So we've built in some extra time there. And then they'll go, in this example, from their home ELA, they'll go to an applieds class, such as family and consumer science, and they will spend that quarter, those 2 days a week, and the remote learning in that one applied. So rather than having 2 applieds like they normally would, they will only have 1, but they will be in that applied for the 1 quarter. Then they'll move to their next class, have lunch and break. One of the questions I've heard a lot is, will kids be able to go outside? And yes, they will still be able to go outside. We were going to have designated areas around the campus where classes can be held outside and kids can have a break. So outside they won't have the same mask requirements as they would inside, as long as they are continuing to distance. Then they'll come back in or go to their next class if it's outside for science, and in this example, from science to math. And here at the end of the day, because we know we want to support kids throughout the rest of the week, there will be a check-in time, making sure kids have anything downloaded on their iPads that they may need, making sure they know what assignments they will be looking for on Schoology when they are out of the building, and just making sure that they have the tech skills and any hard copies that they may need to be successful. We know that especially our 7th graders who will be new to Schoology and new to the general workflow, we need to build in plenty of practice on that. And so that is that schedule. All right, so I'm going to stop presenting. And so our biggest hope is to preserve the team structure that has been so crucial to supporting kids while at Lamoille, and building in opportunities where kids can get to know each other just in smaller groups, in hopes that as we can come back into the building further, we can put some of the smaller pods together and build more and more cohesiveness throughout the team, and eventually have the whole building back. At least that's my hope. I am an optimist. So that's what I have for you right now. And I think there's an opportunity for questions later, or you can put them in the chat and I will try to answer them. Thank you.
Thanks, Denise. I think when we talk about the reopening of school, often one of the first things that comes up to people's mind is what safety protocols are going to be in place. I do know that we have Flo Kelly on the call, although these grids are awfully small. Flo, you still out there?
I sure am, Brian. I'm
Great.
right here.
Would you mind just taking a minute just to go over some of the health and safety protocols that are going to be in place on our campus?
Absolutely. First off, welcome everyone. It's really nice to see everybody from our community, and it's just great to touch base with everyone. I want you to know that from March on, I've been participating in the Vermont School Nurse Association Best Practice Committee for professional standards for this specifically. Also, the health and safety guidelines, the people on those committees, that task force who provided these guidelines for us include Dr. Benjamin Lee, Dr. William Razka. They're both from UVM Children's Medical. Patsy Kelso, our state epidemiologist, and Brina Holmes, the chair of the maternal child health department here in Vermont. There have been some strong experts. There's also been some psychologists who participated in this task force as well. It is always evolving, and we will keep up to date on it. We will keep you up to date on it. And I hope that if you have any questions, you let me know. The first thing we've done for safety and health is health screenings. And what this is, and I'm going to refer to it as a daily health check. And we are relying on our community to perform this. As of now, families will be responsible for answering 4 questions every day. The 4 questions are, have you been exposed to someone with diagnosis of COVID-19? Have you been around someone who is in quarantine for COVID-19? Have you had any symptoms? And we've specifically listed symptoms that are consistent with COVID-19. And also the last question is if you've traveled outside of state or in an area where the health department has documented that there is a large outbreak. You can visit the Vermont Department of Health website to find the specific travel information with regard to that question. What we as a school are going to be doing is taking everybody's temperature. So each school has their own method of how they're doing it because of the numbers of students in these schools. The smaller schools will probably have people drive up, take temperatures while parents and children are still in the car. We have a particular layout for our school that Mr. Schaffer will be explaining to you. So what we will be doing is checking everyone's temperature. If a child has a temperature of 100.4 or above, they are to be sent home. This is why it's really important that if you are dropping off your student, that you stay around until after that temperature check. Students aren't going to be getting on the buses until that temperature check has been done and they are no longer running a fever. So at bus stops, it's really important to have a plan with your child or be with your child. If children, such as in the high school, are carpooling, everyone in the vehicle must be wearing a mask. So that's very important. If one student ends up having to go home, then arrangements really need to be made between families and the school and the children. So we need to tighten that up, and we need to be able to count on our families to do this. So that's health screens. The eliminating somebody or excluding somebody for a fever of 100.4 is not new. We've always done that as a school. So that is not a new rule. The health screens obviously are. Face coverings. When we talk about face coverings, I'm talking about cloth face coverings like this one. They are better if they are more than one layer. 2 to 3 layers is best protection for your children and you. We do have surgical masks for children who don't have masks at home. And so we will be able to distribute masks to people if they need them, or if they get dirty, or if they get wet, or something happens to them. If your child brings their face mask to school, my recommendation is that you put their name inside it and that they have a spare. These have to be washed every day after school before they're worn again. That's the recommendation. The other recommendations are that they're handled by the handles or the ties, the loops of the ties, and that we try to instruct children not to touch when they're on the face. They shouldn't be worn around the neck. They shouldn't be hanging from somebody's elbow. They shouldn't be pulled down this way. So there's some particular mechanisms to how you're supposed to wear these. On the face, tightly covering your nose and mouth. They can be removed during eating, drinking, when you're outdoors where reliable distance can be maintained. You can, as I said, have some on hand, and if you can't find any, I would check with your local town office or your community center, because there's so many people who have donated these and have them available for people. Gaiters, neck ups, those are not allowable. They're made mainly of breathable material. They hang on the neck, they don't fit tightly, and when you take them off, you have to pull them up and over your head, which spreads the droplets. Bandanas are not allowed because they're open at the chin. Scarves are the same thing. One-way vent masks. These vents vent out, so they aren't protecting anybody else in the room, and they are not allowed. So those types of items are not allowed. Face coverings can be stored in plastic zip bags, paper bags. They're not allowed to be hung from lanyards. So that's because that would be dangling and the droplets would fall down. We are also recommending some frequent hand washing. So we will have hand sanitizer. We will have folks and teachers and children hand washing very frequently throughout the day. If your child is prone to very dry skin, or if teachers are prone to very dry skin, hand lotion on hand is recommended. That would be a great thing to have. children need to bring their belongings home each day. We really don't want a lot of material things hanging around because we do a lot of cleaning when the rooms are empty. Let me think if I can think of anything else that you might, the role of the Vermont Department of Health. So what happens if somebody is found positive with COVID in our community school? This is what happens. The Vermont Department of Health gets notified when there is a positive case. The Vermont Department of Health notifies our administration. The Vermont Department of Health determines with our administration what the next steps are. They have to research all of the contacts and whether or not a contact has been made. It is not likely that we will have to close down the entire campus for a single COVID case because of the way we're doing things. So I wanted to let you know that as well. And the local Vermont Department of Health is very receptive to any questions that you may have on testing or contact tracing. They have a hotline on their website, and they're very responsive. They respond that day. They always have respond to me in the very same day in a short period of time when I've had questions. I think that's it, and I will scan the chat box to see if there's any questions for me and try to answer people's questions. And if I don't see it, please don't hesitate to contact me.
Flo, I'm going to interrupt for a moment. There is a question about what happens if a parent needs to leave very early, and I think it's in the chat box, and isn't able to provide answers to those questions.
You fill out the form at home, and you provide your student with the form. We take his temperature. If he does not have a fever, he comes into the school. If he does have a fever, we're going to be calling you right back to come pick him up. That's what happens. We would have to isolate that child. We have 2 health offices right now. One is what I call the clean health office, and our new nurse, Karen Wells, will be staffing that office. We have an isolation area with several isolation rooms built in for that purpose, that if anybody comes down with symptoms, we are instructed by the state of Vermont and by the guidelines to put that person in the isolation room until a parent can pick them up.
And I just saw a question from Tara Walsh about whether we do spot testing. And Flo, you help me out with this, but our nurses are not supposed to do COVID testing or diagnosis of COVID.
No, we as nurses cannot diagnose. We cannot test for that reason, because I can't look at a test and say, you've got it. That's not the way that works. So if a child does have symptoms, what we are recommending you do is to contact your healthcare provider, and you and your healthcare provider make the next determination as to what happens next. If the child is thought to have symptoms consistent with COVID, the physician will test. If not, then the physician will release, and there's no issue. Thank you, Catherine, by the way.
Oh, absolutely, Flo. Thank you for all your incredibly wonderful information. This has been helpful for everyone. I would say there was another question about temperatures being checked. So at the first point of contact, temperatures will be checked. I will tell you that the Agency of Education has loosened those guidelines, but we are not going to loosen those guidelines. We are going to check temperatures at first point of contact, whether that's on a bus or entry into school.
Thank you, Catherine. That's exactly right. And thank you, Deb. Yeah. I will say one more thing, in that if a parent does need to pick a child up early, they need to notify the office so that we're aware, as always. That's always been in the way. And we won't be allowing visitors in. So unless parents have an appointment, they are not allowed in the building. We can't have visitors coming in.
Flo, can you address the question about HIPAA during screenings?
All that information is confidential. So we're taking a temperature and not documenting it. It doesn't get put anywhere. The forms that you complete get put directly into a box, and that comes to the school nurse and gets stored for 2 weeks for the health department, and then it's shredded. So,
and frankly, the way that the Vermont Department of Health is going to be doing contact tracing is by the attendance records kept by all in the school.
right.
That's how they're going to do the contact tracing, not by someone's health screen.
Right. Anything else, Kat, that you see? It's hard for me to read the screen.
People are wanting to know where they find that form.
It's on the school website and would be distributed with the information that goes out early to parents.
So I'm also seeing that some people are saying they've never received the form that is asking for the application to choose a mode of learning. And I believe that both Brian Schaffer and Denise Maurice sent out a robocall today. If that is the case, we will work with you, and you need to call them, and we will record your preference. They will record your preference.
Kat, that link has just been shared one more time. You can click on it right there in the chat box.
Okay.
All right. We continue to have high levels of people trying to knock off the questions as best they come. I would ask Dylan, facility director, to come on and pop on in with some information about our facility.
Good evening, Lamoille. So I kind of going to do a brief overview of some of the changes facilities is working on or has completed. I'm going to break down into 3 sections: custodial, HVAC, and just general facility information. I'm going to try to be brief, and then we can answer some questions. But so we've hired 6 full-time temporary employees that are going to be on this campus between the tech center, middle school, and high school. These are hired specifically for the disinfecting process that we've got laid out in front of us, and the expanded duties. On August 18th and 19th, all year-round facility staff. So I think I actually misstep on an earlier meeting and said all staff, but it's just facility staff. I'm going to be doing, and I trip up every time, but I'm going to try to not this time. Get certified in disinfecting and control principles for infectious disease from the Global Biorisk Advisory Council. Nailed it. So this basically training is really specific to any kind of infectious disease. We get trained multiple times a year on how to disinfect and proper custodial and a bunch of other stuff. This is really specific to what we're dealing with every day from September 8th on. So we've also done a lot of COVID-specific custodial procedures that are now built into our new custodial standards. Those have gone out to all of our staff. We're actually having a comprehensive training on that next week as well. We've also standardized all of our district-wide disinfectants. So we've basically gone through all of the schools in the district, all of our custodial closets, and we've standardized all of our disinfectants. We've cross-checked all those disinfectants to make sure that they're effective against COVID, and we are going to be using them on all the campuses. We do have multiple levels of disinfectant, if people are asking. There is a mild disinfectant that we'll be using when students are in session, and we have a professional grade disinfectant that will be used to sanitize the buildings after hours in the evening. So that's kind of custodial in a nutshell. HVAC, all systems are 100% operational on the Lamoille Union GMTCC campus. All filters to the HVAC system and heating coils, cooling coils have been sanitized, changed, and cleaned. All night setbacks and efficiency programs have been removed. And what the reason why we remove those is so that we can basically optimize our intake and exhaust for all rooms, all offices in the campus. So we're going to be basically both drawing in the maximum amount of air and exhausting the maximum amount of air 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in all spaces. Facility-wise, we on the 24th, we will actually build our isolation rooms for the Lamoille Union campus after the next week's in service. We're going to build 10 isolation rooms. These isolation rooms are actually all kind of conjoined, but then they are also separated in between with plastic. They have a HEPA 20 filter system, purification system inside. So basically, we will cycle that air all the way through. The HEPA 20 will actually catch COVID or influenza A or B. It's a pretty comprehensive filter system. Room setup guidance has been sent out to all faculty a couple weeks ago, and we're going to be going over some of that training next week with everybody as well. It's basically stating that students all need to be facing in one direction. We need to optimize 3-foot rule as a minimum. If we can't maintain the 3-foot spacing between students, what we'll do is we'll put an actual physical divider in there. We have a few different options. We have a plexiglass divider for tables that we'll be mounting on tables. We also have desk dividers, which is like a 3-paneled plastic cardboard device that will go on the desks. I'm confident with our student body numbers that we're looking at, we are going to probably be able to exceed the 3-foot rule in 90% of the applications. Let's see, what else do I have on my list? Changes to just general operations. There will be no deliveries allowed inside the campus. So basically, if we're talking deliveries of copier paper or food in the morning, it'll all get dropped out. We don't want our delivery guys walking in the building and contaminating anything. So they will come in, they will drop it under a tent that we have assigned. We will then bring it in our buildings with staff that's been through the health screening process. We've also, any repair or any outside technician that needs to come into our campus will have to go through the same process that any faculty, staff, student needs to. They'll have to go through, get a temperature check, and do the health screening as well. And then lastly, just so everybody knows, the district in a whole has procured roughly 3 months supply of all PPE. That's personal protection equipment. That's everything from face masks that we can hand out to the students or the staff. We have multiple grades, multiple styles, multiple sizes. It's not one size fits all. I think we have something that will work for everyone, and we have lots of it. We have rubber gloves, we have hand sanitizer, we have face shields. I think we're as prepared as anybody could be to open school on September 8th. And that's everything I have in a nutshell. Thanks.
Thanks, Dylan. Also on the call, and again, just trying to knock off whatever questions pop up in the chat box. I think the best way, because this is still a very large room, is to email either the principals, B. Schaffer, BSCHAFFER at LUHS18.org, or Denise Maurice, DMAURICE at LUHS18.org. Okay, I'm going to pass it over to Wendy Savery, Curriculum Director for the district. There were some questions about VLTVC to go, and there's a lot of terms that are getting confused. I know I responded to a question. Schoology is a learning management system, which means that's how we house and communicate student progress assignments, and there's a way to give back. Canvas is a new one that people are going to be learning this year. The courses at the high school are primarily coming from the Octave, but we can pull from the Plato Edmentum courses, which are online, as well as the to-go. But I'll step back, let Wendy have a little bit of the floor, and then just see if I can't pick off any of the other questions last week. So stand by for Wendy.
Good evening, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here and wrap up with the middle school and the high school. I have to say that there has been a great deal of time and effort and planning that's gone into really trying to listen to the feedback that we received in June from, parents, students, teachers, and community members. And I would say that the biggest message we received was to try to be as consistent as possible, to keep things simple, as well as try to provide more resources and structure. That is one of the reasons why when the state of Vermont partnered with the Vermont Learning Cooperative, and we found out they were expanding options, not just from their 10 years of experience with 6th grade through 12th grade, but also K-5. It seemed like a really good option for us to have available for all of our staff. And that was, again, in an effort to help things to be consistent. I know there was a question about what happens if we all go remote. Well, the beautiful thing about having the option of the hybrid as well as the full-time remote is that either way, we will be using learning management systems that can continue. Whether you're in person, whether you're off-site, whether you're full-time online learning, those systems would continue. And we would try to model the same type of schedule that's developed. I think it's fair to say that the Vermont Learning Cooperative is providing us not only with a full accredited, they have something like 140 courses available. They are all accredited and nationally recognized. So it will provide that consistency for our 100% remote learners. I think one of the challenges that we're really going to be looking into next week, once we find out how many families would like remote learning, is to meet the licensing requirements. It's a little easier K-5, actually K-6, because those teachers can teach students in any content area within those grade levels. Starting in 7th grade, that's not the case. Students, a teacher has to be licensed and endorsed in the specific content area they're teaching. So to tell you exactly what a schedule will look like is difficult at this point until we see how many teachers we're going to need in what content areas. I think what I can say is the similarities between the two are a combination of core subject areas, check-in times, a homeroom advisory. My Golden has decided to play with her very noisy toy. Let me get that, and I'll be right back. My apologies, I thought I had picked up all the squeaky toys. So again, I was saying that either way, you should see consistency in over a period of 1 to 2 days, getting the content courses in their schedule, having check-in times, having opportunities for the groups to come together, whether that's in circles or some sort of advisory or restorative practice work. There will be the lessons, which could be a combination of whole group, small group, as well as some one-to-one time, individual work time, office hours. There'll be the same combination of efforts made in the hybrid model where there are 3 days off-site, 2 days on-site. So we are going to try to stay true to that general type of schedule. So I hope that answers some of the differences. Just going back to a minute to the VLC, they do offer, as Brian said, a learning management system called Canvas. It is one of the top 5 systems in the country. A lot of colleges use it. Schoology is also well known, and they really do try to, they accomplish the same thing. It's just the fact that Vermont VLC does use Canvas. And I think it will be really good for us to have the opportunity to compare both of those learning management systems together. But either way, no matter what happens, once a student starts with a system, they will be able to continue it for the year. They won't have to make a shift. So those are some of the differences, and I'll try to help out answering further questions.
All right, I think we're making progress in seeing the questions come up and responding to them. One of the big recent changes is dealing with athletics. I believe we have Tim Messier at least listening in, or Stacy Stokes on the call. Stacy Stokes is the middle school athletic director. Tim Messier is the high school athletic director. I'm hoping they can pop on in. Hello.
Go ahead, Tim.
Brian and everyone else, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I apologize for the technical difficulties. Hello, everyone. Can't see you. Can't wait till I do have that opportunity. As with school, athletics is going to look very different in many ways this year. But over the summer, in consultation with Mr. Schaffer, an amazing nurse Kelly, and coaches, and some of your student athletes and families, We have already started some of the many processes that will be in place to make sure that athletics is conducted in a very safe, thorough, and consistent fashion. There's a bulletin that will be coming out for grades 7 through 12 in mailings, I believe, early next week that address a great deal of athletic department information. That being said, as all of you are getting used to, we have a lot of changes from day to day. We will be the point of first contact in some instances and be following all processes that the school would be doing in the morning. There's a lot of questions around when we will be able to move from practice to game. That is a DOE and DOH decision that will be coming down the pipes. Practices will begin on September the 8th, the first day of school. And I encourage any and all of you, if you have any questions, feel free to call me at 802-851-1333 or email me, tmessier@luhs18.org. Happy to answer any questions here and want to give Stacy Stokes the opportunity to chime in if I left anything out. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. One thing he did leave out was locker rooms will not be available. So kids, we're going to have to be unique. They'll have to wear either their practice gear under their clothes or something during the day. We're going to have to work on that as we get along. And as of right now, Brian, I think late buses are not available.
That's what I'm hearing right now. There'll be more information coming out about transportation soon, I believe, to parents. I think, you know, there's a lot of logistics clearly that we still have to work out. And so we do thank you for your patience as things on the ground continue to change. I would take this opportunity to say, though, we've had a couple of successful programs operate over the summer. First, I want to identify our driver's education classes that got held up during the spring because of the pandemic. We did offer in-person instruction. We did so with a full range of health and safety standards that those students completed that classwork that we had online remote learning. And I think, Tim, if you could just speak a little bit to the practices that have been going on and your observations about how things are working.
Sure, Brian. Thank you. Again, have to give Mr. Schaffer and Flo a ton of credit for working with me and the coaches to come up with very specific plans around protocols and safety for the summer athletic activities. I believe we've had cross-country running, boys and girls basketball, boys and girls soccer, and I believe football workouts have taken place as well. So hats off to Jerry Whittlak, the athletic director at Fairfax, as well as their wonderful coaching staff. I've popped by a lot of these events. I'm so pleased with the way in which parents are honoring the expectations as far as spectators, pick up and drop up. The student athletes have done a great job of being responsible and taking these expectations very seriously. They realize that it's not just about sport, it's about safety and the well-being of everyone involved, and they've really risen to that challenge. These things will continue during the school year as well. I want to let everybody know that in addition to concussion and AED CPR trainings, all coaches will be taking a National Federation of High School Sports course for COVID. They'll also complete the VOSHA training and the same Safe Schools training that the educators and faculty, staff, etc. at Lamoille will be taking. So they'll be very well versed in meeting all the expectations. A couple things again, transportation is going to be a very interesting issue, and the debate on masks. I completely concur with what Flo said earlier. In the research I've been able to do and working with some vendors, I am really leaning towards a 2 or 3 ply type of mask. I'm discouraging even the 2 ply gaiters, though they may be comfortable. The DOE through the via the VPA, it was announced that masks are going to be expected to be worn during play. That includes 7v7 football. Even though they'll have helmets, they will have masks. Soccer will require masks. Golf has a little bit of flexibility, as does cross-country running, due to the ability to socially distance in a different fashion. But again, as Flo and Brian, Pat, as everyone said, these things do change regularly. So we'll be prepared to update everyone around this. And we're working on trying to find some vendors because there's been a lot of requests for blue and gold masks that we could put the mascot on, masks with LU. So we're still going to be able to display Lancer Nation pride on those masks. And I've had requests to try to get enough for fans and spectators, not just teams and coaches. So Stacy and I will do our best on that. Thank you.
Okay. Great, thanks, Tim. I don't want to, I want to keep an eye on the time. We've been on for 55 minutes at this point now. Again, we've put out emails and a lot of information, a lot to process. Please understand that many of the logistical questions that pop up in general are still being worked out, and we appreciate you working with us as we try our best. I just want to open it up to any of the other school personnel who have any messages for our community at this point. It looks like, Kat, you're up.
Thank you, Brian. So I think I would say first, thank you for being here. The fact that there are so many people on this call, and frankly, there have been many people on the calls all week, speaks to the investment and the care that we all have. Here is why I think, one of the reasons why I think that we are feeling a little, uncertain, a little sort of anxiety around all of this. Back in March, we heard that we needed to wash vegetables because that was important to keeping us safe. Then we heard that you don't really actually need to do that. Then we heard that children develop some inflammatory illness. And then we heard that children really under the age of 10 don't transmit or spread contagion. There has been a lot of conflicting information, and I understand what that causes. That causes anxiety in all of us. So what we do know is that there are various, and I put it in a triangle, various pressures. There's a health agenda, and I have said this in every one of the forums. Health agenda, education agenda, economic agenda, political agenda. And I sort of put economic and political in one piece. There is a huge push to open in-person instruction, especially at the K-5 level. So to answer Jessica's question, and I'll read this verbatim, districts will have the ability to choose among in-person, remote, or hybrid, regardless of the step level, unless schools are placed on step 1, which means that schools are closed. So even if the governor pushes within 2 weeks, 3 weeks of the opening of school to move into a full-time in-person piece, we are going to look at the health modeling in our region. If there's an executive order, all bets are off. We have to do what that is. But let me share with you what this is looking like. So we have, for the first time, NVU has admissions, 30% of the admissions are from out of state. And that's wonderful. We welcome everyone into our state of Vermont because that's who we are. But 30% of them are from out of state. And we know that other states don't look like Vermont. We know that Vermont had athletes come back early to practice. What happened? Well, we have positive cases. So in the last 4 days ago, we had 11. 3 days ago, we had 6. 2 days ago, we had 5. Today, we had 17. This is not meant to alarm anyone. What I'm suggesting is that we're going to see more and more. So we reserve the right to remain as safe as we think we need to remain. If people are choosing a remote environment and they decide that a hybrid might be better, or a hybrid environment and they decide that remote learning would be better, we will consider that flexibility. Absolutely. We want to make this work for everyone. We understand that this is an incredible hardship for some parents. We will work with you. But our first mandate is to be safe. And so by opening that spigot slowly, we are doing the right thing. We will address this. The governor may address it in 2 weeks. We will address it between 30 and 45 days. And we have committed to that. We will see what the modeling looks like. Because frankly, in 2 weeks, we're not going to know what the modeling looks like. That's not enough time. 30 to 45 days is absolutely enough time. And we'll make decisions. Thank you, Jennifer, and Rhoda, and all of you. So we want to do the right thing, but we also want to be safe in doing so. So that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Kat.
Thank you.
It's 6:30 right now. I want to thank you all for participating. There will be more opportunity for information certainly to be shared by us. One note from me is I dropped an invite for the next LUHS community check-in, which is Wednesday, August the 19th at 9 a.m. So this Wednesday coming on up. We will continue to communicate and make the best decision on behalf of our families in our community as we move forward. And so thank you all very much for tuning in tonight. Stay tuned for more information. Be well. Checking out. Bye-bye.